Today on the Big 3 in 30, the Eagles make a trade for a receiver before the draft.
We're talking about a big trade.
The Chiefs take a look at options coming up in the NFL draft.
One of the things that we have continued to hear is that Bain could be possibly slipping, some of the wide receivers could be slipping.
And the Chargers get a full mock draft to look at who they could select.
Daniel, we got a full mock draft for the people out there.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NFL, the three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NFL starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Eagles made a real move before the draft, trading for receiver Dontayvion Wicks and giving him a one-year contract extension as well. Louis DiBiase gives his thoughts on what the trade means for Philly.
We're talking about a big trade that Howie Roseman just made an hour ago. The Philadelphia Eagles are acquiring Green Bay Packers wide receiver Dontayvion Wicks for a 2026 fifth-round pick and a 2027 sixth-round selection. Dontayvion Wicks heading into his fourth year. He had a 5-touchdown season in 2024. He had over 580 yards in his rookie season of 2023 with 4 touchdowns on the year as well. The Eagles are also giving Dontayvion Wicks a $12.5 million contract extension for 1 year to keep him through both 2026 and 2027. This is not some John Mechie kind of trade. This is a pretty significant move in what it tells us about the future of the Eagles wide receiver position. For me, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, guys, I'm really sorry, but the A.J. Brown truthers out there that have been taking this victory lap all week because of the Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel story that thought this trade was never going to happen, and the Rossini story confirmed it to you. I'm really sorry, but this kind of kills your momentum. I think this tells us that A.J. Brown is 100% without a doubt getting traded post-June 1st. Now, is Dontayvion Wicks an A.J. Brown caliber player? No, absolutely not. But just think about it. If the Philadelphia Eagles plan to have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as the long-term future, considering the amount of targets those guys have eaten up over the last 4 years, on top of you brought back Dallas Goedert on a 1-year contract, you still have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, why would the Eagles be doing this much work at wide receiver, signing Hollywood Brown? That wasn't just a nothing signing. Trading 2 draft picks for Dontayvion Wicks, and not just trading 2 draft picks, but also giving him a contract extension worth $12.5 million. Like, that's not chump change for Howie Roseman. Why would they be doing that? Why would they be spending all of these top 30 visits on first and second round receiver prospects like Indiana's Omar Cooper, Louisville's Chris Bell? Why would there be insiders that believe the Eagles could look to trade up in the first round for somebody like Arizona State wide receiver Jordan Tyson? Considering how minimal of a role the wide receiver 3 spot has had for the Eagles in the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith era, they would not be doing all of this work if they thought A.J. was coming back. I'm sorry. Like, I want A.J. Brown to be a part of the long-term future still for the Eagles as well. I wish everybody could sing Kumbaya, and I wish him and Jalen were still best friends. I wish A.J. was happy with winning and getting over 1,000 yards a year and being committed to changing this scheme the better and improving this passing game under Sean Mannion and a new West Coast system. But that is just not the case. Like, I know the Diana Rossini story definitely shows a lot of holes in her reporting about the story, in her motivations about constantly flooding your timeline with A.J. Brown rumors and speculation. She was definitely trying to help out the Patriots in trade leverage, but there was always a trade on the table. The Patriots GM confirmed it. The Rams GM confirmed it. The Eagles have never just shot it down and said A.J. is a part of the future long-term. And now you're signing a young wide receiver that is a bigger bodied guy, by the way. Dontayvion Wicks is 6'1", plays really well above the rim, a contested catch guy with good body control that can play the X. I think he complements what you have with shiftier, faster, smaller receivers and Devontae Smith in Hollywood Brown. I think he's a good complement to that. I think he is the style of player. He's the similar build of A.J. Brown. He's not nearly the kind of player A.J. is, but he's a similar style. Like, come on. Read between the tea leaves. You guys have been watching and covering football probably just like me for a really long time. And I know there's a lot of denial going on, and I know a lot of you don't want to trade A.J. Brown, but it's happening. And Dontayvion Wicks is just another move to prepare for life after A.J. I think Dontayvion Wicks and Hollywood Brown are going to try to replace A.J.'s production in a committee approach. I do still think, though, the Eagles, they don't necessarily have to sign another receiver or trade for another receiver or draft another receiver in the early rounds, but I still think they should.
It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person, and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed. That's according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. It's over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support your show by saying you heard about Indeed right here. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcome back to the Big 3 in 30 NFL. Kansas City could be zeroing in on pass rush help, with Miami edge rusher Ruben Bain Jr. tied to the Chiefs through a top 30 visit as the draft gets closer. Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark of Locked On Chiefs size up that target and more in a full mock draft.
One of the things that we have continued to hear is that Bain could be possibly slipping. Some of the wide receivers could be slipping. The teams seem to be more interested in some of the offensive tackles. So we took that into consideration and ran a couple different scenarios. This is not something we normally do on our mock drafts, but we went and we restarted the mock draft multiple different times just to kind of see what happened with the different ways. And we ended up using the consensus board, not PFF's board. So that also changed things a little bit. But this is how it shook out. And to me, they got who they wanted to get. Mm-hmm. But Ruben Bain wasn't there with the first couple of times we ran through this scenario. We don't know. The one thing that we don't know is this just people trying to push players down? That could possibly be what's going on here. Or is it really something that the teams feel? What were your thoughts here?
Well, and this is why that exercise was useful, is especially using the consensus board. That's building in what Daniel Jeremiah thinks or what Dane Brugler thinks. A number of media members that have a lot of connections inside the league, right? It's honestly the best thing that PFF had done with that tool in quite a long time, and it matches what some of the other, I think, more informed tools for mock drafting do, but they're not as clean and not as easy to navigate and actually use. You know what I mean? But I think they're a little more accurate. So I think what that does is give you an idea of what some of the scenarios are. And the teams run these mock drafts as well. They just do it themselves. They probably have their own internal tools, but they run a ton of them all the time just to get a feel for like what it looks like. And I thought that was really useful because it told us, it confirmed that yes, if Cleveland's ready to move out, then that is an opportunity to go get the guy that you want and address need number one. And that was worth taking that chance on. Everything else after that is gravy, really, compared to being able to go get job number one done.
Well, and I will say this, if there's any possible chance the Chiefs can go from 9 to 6 for the 5th round pick of 148, they're going to do it, and they will draft Ruben Bain if he is available sitting there at number 6. I have no doubt in my mind that is what they're going to be looking at. I'm going to be curious to see how this turns out. I mean, we are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft at this point. So it is something that we will be finding out very shortly what the teams think of these players and how it turns out. And we're going to talk about the other first-round pick in the next segment. But I do think the interesting part of getting to that pick itself was all the wide receivers went between 6 and 18.
Mm-hmm. It was run. And that is very, very something very plausible that could happen in reality as well.
Well, and then if we look at, here's how the first round turned out. Tate went 2 picks after the Chiefs. Then you have, Delane going at 10, Tyson going at 11, and let's see, Living going at 12.
13? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's CB1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 3, and tackle 1, all in that 4 or 5 picks after we went. Now, I have Tate as wide receiver 2. I do have Tyson as number 1. It is definitely a roll of the dice. But that tells you that just how much we're teetering still, the Chiefs are at 9, on the edge of having a chance to get what they want and having a chance to have everybody they want go after them like all in a row.
Now, it's interesting because then you end up getting Caden Proctor going at 17. So it's a 4th offensive tackle in the top 17. And that gives you the ability, plus 2 safeties, that gives you the ability to have a chance at a guy like Kenyon Sadiq at 18. And I do feel like if the Chiefs would have waited to try to go to pick 20 or something like that, they wouldn't have gotten Sadiq because I do think the Carolina Panthers probably would have pounced. But, Amar Cooper goes at 22, so you have another wide receiver going in the top 25. Akeem Messidor goes at 25. So your edges are going to be gone. TJ Parker goes a couple picks after that. It's just the way this draft set up was very interesting to see kind of how it played out. With the safeties and the wide receivers, and then all of the tackles going as well. I think Kansas City is going to go try to get Ruben Bain. I do think that's who they really want. It's just a matter of, do other teams really want to give up more to go get him, or are the Chiefs going to be able to make a move to be able to do that? Kansas City gets a tight end of the future in Kenyon Sadiq at number 18. I do think that this is something that if it plays out this way, look at the draft board. You're not even going to have a chance really at 29 to get a wide receiver probably that fits the Chiefs. You are down to 5 and 6 wide receivers go by pick 30 in this draft.
Yeah, a guy that fits them as well. Omar Cooper goes 7 picks beforehand. Concepcion, yes, a lot of folks like him. I'm not sure he's exactly what the Chiefs are looking for. I do think there's more that you want to look for on the outside. Also, I don't think Denzel Boston is their cup of tea either. Yep. So it does make it very difficult to squeeze in a fit at 29 currently. So more and more, whatever we did with number 9 works out or not, more and more I'm seeing that the Chiefs cannot stay at 29 and get done anything that can help them at this point without making it a significant reach.
Yeah, and that's the big question is, if Kansas City doesn't get Bain at 6 and they have to go, or 9, and they have to go a different direction, what can they get done? I mean, in this scenario, you're still looking at your top 5 edge rushers are gone by 27. So you can't stay at 29. If you don't get an edge at pick 9 or pick 6 or whatever, you still can't stay at that period because you're not going to get your edge at 29. So you're going to have to trade up just to try to go get an edge. Depending on what you get in at pick 9, you still need an edge at 29. So you have to get out of the first round, in my opinion, with an edge.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. knowing that there are 2 picks there. And yes, maybe this trade up was a little bit on the cheap for a 5th round pick, but I will say you cannot afford to give up both of those picks in order to move up. So if it becomes you lose out on Bain because you didn't move up and you have to go at a different position there, then you have to move up with 29, but you can't give up those. You cannot take just one selection in the first round, in my opinion.
Unless you trade back. That would be the only caveat. If you get an edge at 9, I think you can trade back at 29 if the board just doesn't allow you to get where you really want to go. But that would be really the only scenario. But you'd have to get an edge with your first pick. Yeah. And I don't think that you're going to be in a position at 29 to get a guy that you want. So you're either going to have to trade up or trade down. And so, I mean, that's really, I think, going to be the scenario for this team. But Kenyon Sadiq coming in and having a year to learn under Travis Kelce and be in the NFL and see how Kelce trains, see how Kelce reads the field and understands defenses and how he has the relationship with Mahomes, I think would be a huge benefit for him in 2026.
Agreed. That would be a big, big boon to jumping right into the deep end and getting yourself going.
Yeah, and if he gets to a point where he can come in and give them, even if it's just 300 or 400 yards in 2026, I still think that's a win for Kansas City because Kelce's probably still going to give you 700 to 800 would be my guess as long as he stays healthy. And at that point, you're going to be in a good situation. And then Kenyon Sadiq can come in and be your starter in 2027, and you already have that position taken care of. So we've been talking about this for ever. 5 years that they need to find a Travis Kelce replacement of sorts, it seems. And like, I did not expect him to be playing to the age he is right now. But at this point, he is still going, and I think he's going to be done after 2026. So getting a replacement for him in 2027 makes a ton of sense. Is there anything else that stood out to you in the way that the first round shook out?
Just that it does look, as we were talking about before, about some of the wide receivers got pushed down. The tackles got pushed up. So even though it wasn't exactly as dramatic as we're hearing right now, at least over the weekend, it does look like it's trending that way. So if that continues, we need to keep an eye on it this week, and we'll come back and make sure whatever is happening, we will have a thread through it so we understand what, not just the top 8, but honestly what 15 through 23 look like, because that's probably the prime trade area.
Yep. And if you're able to get your defensive end and you can trade up to anywhere in that 15 to 23 range, it's going to be a big question to me what you're going to have to give up to go from 29 to get to where you really want to be. But if you're trying to get a blue chip player, which is exactly why I felt like we should make the trade, because I do think that while Sadiq probably isn't worth the number 9 pick, I think he's definitely worth 18, and I do think he is considered a blue chip player. Do you have a first round grade on him?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't have a top 10 grade on him, but I will say this. If the Chiefs feel that he is a better option than any of the 3 wide receivers, all of whom have something about them that is a drawback, I can see them doing it.
The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. As we round out the regular season, the Celtics play the Knicks in Madison Square Garden tonight. Line is at -5 on FanDuel. If you want to go the other way, Boston money line is 176, plus 176 on that line. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Big 3 in 30 NFL. The latest mock draft from Locked On Chargers takes a look at everything LA could do with the picks they have in this upcoming draft. Daniel Wade and David Drogmeyer go over it on Locked On Chargers.
Daniel, we got a full mock draft for the people out there, and we got one featuring the largest athlete in the draft and also the smallest one in the draft. And we also make sure and address the most important positions of edge rusher and guard.
And don't forget, we have a trade, because that is the way that we think that this is going to best help the Chargers this season, and that is to get more picks, get substantial picks, right? Get top 100 picks to get guys that can help you in this season, which is a must-win season in a lot of ways, especially in the playoffs. But that's where we wanted to start it. We wanted to do a trade back mock draft, and where we ended up getting it done is with the Miami Dolphins. The former coach, obviously, now is the Chargers offensive coordinator, but in a new regime, they could be looking for a quarterback post Tua Tagovailoa. And I know that they have Malik Willis, but they could be looking for the future, like a Ty Simpson. So in this trade, the Dolphins get pick 22, and they also get the Chargers' 6th round pick, 204. And this is why, because it gets the Chargers back pick 30, so they stay in the first round. Their 3rd round pick, pick 87, that lets the Chargers actually draft in back-to-back slots. And their 6th round pick moves up to the 5th round pick, 151. So instead of getting a potential future first round pick like we talked about in the Popper mock last week, we get a trade up, get back into the 5th round where Joe Ortiz has had a ton of magic. And with pick 30, we ended up going with an edge rusher we haven't talked about yet, Cassius Howell, the explosive Texas A&M edge rusher.
Yes, indeed. 6'2", 262 pounds. Had some real premium production on his slate in 2023. Had 10.5 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks. And in 2025, this past season, had his best season by far with 31 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, and 11 sacks to go along with a forced fumble. I really honestly liked the player that I watched. I feel like he was able to handle some minor coverage responsibilities. I feel like he had really good change of direction, good stop and start ability, has the ability to set the edge and run support. A little bit inconsistent on that. He's very much a rhythm player, very much a rhythm player. He's a guy that once he gets a play, he then strings them together, one after the other. Like nearly had a pick against Notre Dame in coverage, showing good athleticism. Also showed an effective bull rush. But yeah, this guy has all kinds of skills. He has the bend that you want. He has the speed, and he has the production to go along with it.
Yeah, and I think we didn't go near him because of the short arms early when we were talking about guys that we would potentially take as far as edge rushers in round 1. But I do think that was mostly because I don't know if Cassius Howell is the future for them at the position, or, the replacement for Khalil Mack, which, let's be honest, they're not getting that guy in this draft class where they're picking. But at the same time, as far as like being able to add to what the Chargers currently have right now, this guy does that, right? As a win now move, as someone that might be just a designated pass rusher, or a guy that is just mostly going to come in pass rush situations, he adds that, right? He brings a little bit of what Odafe Owe did last year. He has the athleticism to chase down mobile quarterbacks, right? And to your point, as far as stringing plays together, before you had started watching him, right, I had told you, like, hey, make sure you watch this game against Mississippi State, because he just has like a ridiculous run in it. And what that was him being able to get on back-to-back plays to the quarterback and hit him twice, one of them ending up in an interception, the other one, he hit the ball and it ended up being an incomplete pass. Then only a couple plays later, you see him just absolutely vicious on a twist because of how athletic he is and how quickly he can get in there and get an instant pressure that forced an incomplete pass, and also getting a sack within another, 3-play stretch. Like, it was very easy to see, what he brings to the table and why people like him so much. Also, right now, he's Dane Brugler's 39th ranked guy. He's on the consensus board 34th overall. So a guy that you could potentially trade back and still end up with, right? And I think if you're trading back and getting more assets like we did today, this becomes a lot more, enticing, because it's like, okay, you're not putting all of your eggs in that basket, and also taking this risk on him doesn't seem as crazy. But yeah, split out at times in coverage. Like, I think this is the big thing. With a creative defensive mind, this guy can be an absolute weapon. But also, David, I think, comes with some downside as well, which is why he's not, like a top 15 pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I said he could set the edge, every once in a while, it's because he doesn't do it consistently. And I feel like it is something where that's something he's going to have to work on for sure at the next level. I feel like he has a plethora of pass rush moves for sure. But I feel like, going into the next, defense he's going to play in, they very much have to find the right role for him. He is a guy that can get kind of pushed around a little bit in run defense. So that's going to be why you're not going to want him on the field as an every down player, and might have to earn his way to get to that point. And I think that there is an ability to do that, but he is very much going to be that situational or that main kind of pass rushing element until, you're going to be able to find room for him to where he can show that he is ready to be that full kind of edge defender.
Well, this is the big thing, right? He has like 30-inch arms. Like that's the one biggest thing that's going to cost him, because physically he is an outlier in that way. I know him and Ruben Bain both with short arms. Did grow by the pro day and got up to 31 inches after being 30 and a quarter at the NFL Combine, but that happened to a lot of guys. There was a lot of guys where it seemed like the measurements at the Combine were coming up a little bit shorter, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch shorter for several players. But either way, like, it doesn't show up that much in his game, but I think as a run defender, my biggest issue with him, because he did bring decent pop. Like, he can stop a tackle in his tracks. Harder for him to get off of the blocks in time, right, with his short arms. But mostly it was just his, need to get upfield as quick as possible, because that's the best way he wins, is going to burn you at times in the running game. Like, if the team decides to run right where you just left from, he's not going to be able to make that play. And because that is his calling card as far as how he gets most of his pressures, most of his sacks, that is a flaw in his game. I don't know if he'll ever be a dynamic edge shedding, every down type of player against the run. I think you could work around him in certain situations where maybe he's not just the third down specialist. But the other thing, a little older at 23 as a rookie. But if you're talking about winning this year, this is a guy that can help you, right? And it isn't as old as like an Akeem Mesidor. But round 2, pick 55 is a guy that we've talked about before, so we'll spend a little bit less time on him today. One of my favorite players in the draft, Georgia Tech guard Keelan Rutledge, a guy that for me helps you right away. He steps in and becomes a starting guard for you, and I feel great about the fit.
Absolutely. Over 800 snaps in each of the last 2 seasons, 0 sacks and only 9 pressures allowed, only 3 hits. Plays with violence, looks to finish defenders and eliminate them from the play. A road grader type of player, a guy that says, get behind me and we're going to go find some real estate to run in front of. He is that type of player. Very powerful grip strength, very effective when just turning guys out of the hole. He's a guy who's one of my favorite players that I watched at the position. I'm absolutely stoked to get him here in the second round and feel very good about the fit, both now and in the future.
And even though, he's a guy who's been shooting out draft boards, still ranks 58th on the consensus board. Dane Brugler still has him 62nd and wasn't in his initial top 100, which I thought was crazy. Definitely getting some of that shine now, but I do think, if other teams end up going with a Pregnon or a Chase Besantis, right, we know Vega's going to be gone. This is a guy that could slip to them at 55. Do what you got to do to get him, in my opinion. 9.54 RAS score, over 33-inch arms and 10-inch hands. Only 6 pressures allowed and 0 sacks last season, 440 pass blocking snaps. All of that stuff checks out in a big way. But to your point, good upper body torque to get defenders out of the hole. Quick feet as a puller, turns the corner well and can move, impacts a pop when he's in space, and will just absolutely crush smaller guys in his way. I thought he was so much to like with him. It's hard to believe it took this long, because it's a guy that was a third-round pick at one point. Now will likely be a second-round pick. But I do think he's also just in this offense, most importantly, quick enough to reach the spots he needs to as a guard to be able to run this wide zone scheme and be a huge improvement for this team in pass protection and in the running game. I love Keelan Rutledge. If they get him in round 2 at 55, I'm glowing. I would absolutely love that pick.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every week just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 College wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NFL.